Hello everyone, I'm Ekaterina from Istanbul Technical University, the School of Foreign Languages, and our grammar topic today is the passive voice. So let's start with the examples. So what is the passive voice and how do we use it? Now look at this house. Yeah. Somebody built this house in 1981. This is an active sentence. Somebody is the subject of the sentence, and this house is the object of the sentence. But if we want to make the sentence a passive one, we should say something like this. This house was built in 1981. Was built is the passive form of the verb build. So this sentence is in the passive voice. This house becomes the subject of the sentence. So it was the object in the previous sentence and now it is the subject of the sentence. In Turkish, you would say something like bu ev 1981 yılında inşa edildi. We don't know who built it, but we know that it was built in 1981. And who did it is not very important for us. One more example, as you see it in the picture, somebody cleans the room every day. This is an active sentence. Somebody is the subject, cleans, verb. The room is the object of the sentence. But if we want to make it a passive sentence, we should say something like this. The room is cleaned every day. The room becomes the subject of the passive sentence. Is cleaned is the passive form of the verb clean. So in Turkish it would be something like oda her gün temizleniyor. We don't know who does it, we don't know who cleans the room, but we know that it is cleaned every day. This is important for us. And who does it is not very important. So, how to form passive and when to use it. We form the passive with the verb to be plus V3, the verb in the third form. If it's a regular verb, then we use the ed ending, clean, cleaned. If it's an irregular verb, we use the third form of the verb from the table of the irregular verbs. Build, built, built, like in the previous example. So when do we use it? As I have already told you, the passive, when we use the passive, who or what causes the action is often unknown or not important. The result of the action is more important for us in this case. Look at this sentence. A lot of money was stolen in the robbery. Was stolen is the passive form of the verb steal. Para çalındı. This is the meaning. Somebody stole it, but we don't know who. Is this room cleaned every day? Is and cleaned, is cleaned. This is the passive form of the verb clean. Bu oda her gün temizleniyor mu? So what we want to know is that does somebody clean it? It's not important who, but it's important that the room is clean. Also, the passive is more often used in formal speech and in writing. So you can use passive in your academic essays. You can use passive in articles, scientific articles. Well, we also use it in everyday speech, but not very often. Look at these two examples. The first sentence, in the first sentence we use passive. Potassium was added and mixed in. The solution was heated to 80 degrees Celsius and then allowed to cool. So it looks like a sentence from a scientific article, or from some scientific experiment. However, the second sentence, the technician added potassium and mixed it in. The technician heated the solution to 80 degrees and then allowed it to cool. So this sentence looks more like a sentence from everyday speech. It is less academic than the previous one. So this is the main difference between active and passive sentences in writing. Okay, let's continue. So, as I told you, the passive is formed with the verb to be plus the third form of the main verb. So, and as you can see from this table, we can use passive in all tenses. We can use it in the present, in the past. We can use it with perfect tenses and with the continuous aspect. So it depends on the meaning and depends on the tense that we are using in our story, in our speech. So just look briefly at this table, and on the next slide I will explain you how to form passive with different tenses. The active sentence here, he paints the house every year. So we just change the tense. He painted the house. He painted the house last year. In the future, he will paint it, or he's going, or if we use modals, we'll say he can paint or he may paint with the continuous aspect. With present and with past continuous, we use is painting and was painting, and in the perfect tenses we use has just painted, he has just painted the house, or he had just painted the house. And in the passive voice, you remember that we have we use the third form of the verb, and the verb to be is always used in the passive voice. So if it is a present tense, look at this. In the simple present, we use any of these, am, is, or are, plus the third form of the verb. The house is painted every year. Is painted is the passive in the present tense. To make a question, we should put the verb to be in the first place. If we don't have a question word. Is this house painted every year? Bu ev her sene boyanıyor mu? What about simple past? In the simple past, we use was or were. This is the verb to be in the past simple plus the third form of the main verb, V3. The house was painted last year. Was the house painted last year? That's the question form. Again, to make a to make a question, you put the verb to be in the first place. So, speaking about the negative form, it's very simple. So you should just use not. You should add not after the verb to be, right? The house was not painted last year, or the house is not painted every year. Okay, what about future tenses? So if we make passive sentences in the future, we use will be plus the third form of the verb. Will be painted. The house will be painted next year. Seneye, önümüzdeki sene boyanacak. Ev önümüzdeki sene boyanacak. Will be painted. Or the house is going to be painted next year. Again, ev seneye boyanacaktır. Or to make a question, you put will in the first place. Will the house be painted next year? Will, subject, verb, and object, or anything that you have, anything else that you have in the sentence. Okay, we can also use modals. Yeah, modal verbs can be or may be plus the third form of the verb. The house can be painted next year. Önümüzdeki sene boyanabilir, or may be painted next year. The same meaning. Boyanabilir. Önümüzdeki sene ev boyanabilir. To make a question, you put the modal verb in the first place. Just the modal verb, then comes the subject, and then the verb. Like this. Let's look at the continuous. Continuous aspect. So basically, if it's present continuous, you use am, is, are, being. Now look at this form. So be, and we also have ing, like in the continuous tenses. Yeah, so ing is always used in the present continuous and in the past continuous tenses. So don't forget about it. Being plus the third form of the verb. The house is being painted now. Ev şu anda boyanıyor. Right? So the meaning is the continuous, so now. It's happening now. To make a question, you should put the verb to be in the first place, then comes the subject and then the verb. The same happens with past continuous. So you basically use was, were, and again being plus the third form of the verb. The house was being painted all last week. Geçen hafta, bütün geçen hafta boyunca boyanıyordu. Was the house being painted last week? That's the question form. For the present perfect, you use have or has plus been. So it's not being, but it's been, and the third form of the verb. The house has just been painted or has been painted. Ev az önce ya da ev boyandı. To make a question, you should put has in the first place. Has the subject of the sentence and the verb. Has the house been painted? Ev boyandı mı? With past perfect, it's also very simple. You know that in the past perfect we have only had for all. For everyone we use had plus been, and don't forget about the third form of the verb. The house looked good because it had just been painted. And to make a question, you put had in the first place, then comes the subject and then the verb. Had the house been painted? So this is basically how we use the passive in different tenses. Now, let's look at these two texts. Yeah, I want you now to put the verbs in brackets into the most suitable form. So we should use passives here, and I recommend you to pause the video to do these two exercises on your own first, and then follow me and just check what you have. So let's check the first text together. Follow me. Road delays. Repair work started yesterday on the Paxham Longworth Road. The road is being resurfaced. It is being changed, and there will be long delays. So right now, it is happening right now. The road is being resurfaced just right now. The workers are working there to resurface the road. Drivers are asked to use an alternative route if possible. Yeah, again, we need the present tense here. They are asked to use alternative routes right now. The work is expected to last 2 weeks. So again, we need the present tense here because possibly the work will continue for 2 weeks. Next Sunday, the road will be closed. Yeah, next Sunday, it's the future tense, so we need future simple passive here. And traffic will be diverted. Yeah, traffic will be changed, diverted. Again, we need future tense here. Now, what about the shop robbery? In Paxham yesterday, a shop assistant was forced to hand over £500 after being threatened by a man with a knife. So, yesterday, yeah, that's why we need the past simple passive here, because it happened yesterday. The man escaped in a car which had been stolen earlier in the day. So something that happened earlier, yeah. So at first he had stolen the car, and then he robbed the shop. That's why we need a past perfect passive here. The car was later found in a car park where it had been abandoned by the thief. Yeah, again, I think it's clear that we need passive, that we need past tense here, past simple here. And the second action, yeah, that happens first. Yeah, so it had been, the thief first, he abandoned the car, yeah, and then the car was found. A man has been arrested in connection with the robbery and is still being questioned by the police. So the police has arrested him. Yeah, he has been arrested. We don't know when it happened. That's why we use present perfect passive here. And he is still being questioned, so it happens right now. Yeah, the police is still questioning that man. Okay, let's continue. So we can also use the agent or the instrument of the action in the passive form. But when we use it, we should use by or with. So when it is important to know the agent or person who performed the action, we use by, okay, before the agent of the action. Some countries have been harmed by tourism. Yeah. Othello was written by Shakespeare. So we very often we use by when we speak about some art objects or plays or books. Yeah, when we want to speak about the author, when the author of the play or book is important, when we want to mention the agent, the author of the action, or I don't know, of the art object. For objects, so not people, but for objects which perform actions, yeah, for instruments, we call them instruments. We use with. He was murdered with a gun. So a gun is not a person, it's an instrument. That's why we use with here. The game is played with a ball of solid rubber. Again, a ball, that's an instrument, not an agent. So use with in such cases. I have a short exercise about the agents and the about the agents of the action. Now here we have here are the people, yeah, famous people who invented something or who did something important, and on the left we have the things that they actually invented or discovered or did. And here you can also see the verbs that we have to use to make passive sentences. So try to match the people with their discoveries or inventions or actions first, and then using these verbs, please write 4 sentences in the passive, and don't forget to use by with the agents. Now pause the screen, pause the video now, and write the sentences on your own. Now I hope you have your sentences, and let's check the sentences together. Now the first sentence, Imagine, yeah, that's the song, was composed by John Lennon. It was composed as the passive form, and we also need by before the agent. John Lennon is the agent of the action. Yeah, he composed this song. Okay. Penicillin was discovered by Alexander Fleming. Yeah. Was discovered is the passive form, and we also need by because we have the agent here. Alexander Fleming is someone who discovered penicillin. Okay, what about the television? Yeah, penicillin, okay. What about the television? The television was invented by John Logie Baird, a Scottish scientist. So again, was invented is the passive form, yeah. Just we use past simple passive here, right? Because it happened some time ago. That's why we need to use past simple here. Was invented by John Logie Baird. And what about the Beijing Olympics, the sprint? The 100-meter sprint at the Beijing Olympics was won by Usain Bolt. Was won is the passive form of the verb win, yeah, and don't forget about by because we have the agent of the action here, and we need to use by to indicate it. Okay, I hope you did it correctly. Let's move on. Some verbs, have two objects. There are many verbs like this in English that have two objects, and we can make passive sentences in two ways with those verbs. Here's an example. They gave Spielberg an award. Or we can also say they gave an award to Spielberg. So an award and to Spielberg these are the two objects of this sentence. Spielberg was given an award. We can say it like this in passive, or an award was given to Spielberg. So which information is important for us? Yeah, the person or the award. Yeah, so we make sentences in accordance with the meaning that we want to convey with those sentences. Okay, so I told you that there are many words like this, that there are many verbs like this that use two objects, and some of them are ask, offer, pay, show, tell, lend, send, serve, take, teach, tell, write. And you can make passive sentences in two possible ways with these verbs. Here are a few more examples. I've been offered the job, or the job has been offered to me. Yeah, these two sentences are both correct. And offer, yeah, is the verb that can use two objects, and that's why we can make sentences in both ways, depending on which information we want to stress. I was shown a copy of the original document, or a copy of the original document was shown to me. Also possible. These two sentences both are correct. He's paid a lot of money for his job, or a lot of money is paid to him for his job. Again, which information you want to stress, that's how you make your sentence with one of the objects. So just do remember that there are such verbs with which you can use passive in both ways. Okay, let's move on. However, there are some verbs that are not used in the passive. We cannot use them in the passive just because they are intransitive. Look at this. So in English, we have transitive and intransitive verbs. Transitive verbs use objects. They have objects. I lost my wallet on the way to school. Yeah? Lose is the verb that uses objects. However, swim, I swim every day, the verb to swim does not use an object. And there are many intransitive verbs in English as well. Such verbs as agree, die, happen, sleep, stay, live, work, and happen. Yeah, these verbs are intransitive verbs. We cannot use them in the passive form. Look at these two sentences. Disney lived in Hollywood most of his life. Yeah, live. We cannot use it in the passive. It can be only active. He became famous when he created Mickey Mouse. Yeah, became famous. Yeah, we cannot say was become. Yeah, it's impossible. So how do we know if the verb is transitive or intransitive. Most online dictionaries have this. Most online dictionaries, like this is, it was taken from the from Longman Online Dictionary, and here in the parenthesis you can see that the verb is intransitive. So most of the dictionaries have this indication. Okay, and the last thing for today is describing a process. We often use passive to describe different kinds of process. The process that we will be focusing on right now is production of toy cars, how a toy car is made. So on the left side, the sentences will be in the active form, and on the right side we will try to change those active sentences into passive, and we will have passive sentences on the right side, and we will try to describe the process using the passive voice. So let me show you the active sentences first. So what's the first step? What happens first in the process of making toy cars? In the factory, they use a computer to plan the exact shape of the car. That's the first step. Step 2. Then they feed this computer program into a machine and produce a plastic prototype. Step 3. Next, they produce the actual toy cars in a factory abroad. Step 4. They add small electric motors to the cars and then they paint them. Step 5. Quality control inspects the cars and ships them abroad. Now let's try to make these active sentences passive. You can pause the video and do it on your own. And let me show you the process in the passive now. Use, yeah? So we have to use it in the passive form. First step, a computer is used to plan the exact shape of a car. Yeah, so is used is the passive form. What happens next? Then, step 2, this computer program is fed into a machine and a plastic prototype is produced. Okay, what happens next? Step 3. Next, the actual toy cars are produced in the factory abroad. Step 4. Step 4. Small electric motors are added to the cars and they are painted. So, add and paint become are added and are painted in the passive form, in the passive sentence. The last step, step 5, we have inspect and ship. Finally, the cars are inspected and shipped abroad. Are inspected, yeah, and are shipped, or just shipped, because we all have are here at the beginning of the passive form. So use passive to describe different processes because it is better to use the passive structure for processes, and it is easier to understand the meaning of the sentence when you use the passive for this kind of processes. So that's basically all what I wanted to tell you about passives today. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.